Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for your patience. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty getting into the CrowdCast this morning, but we're very excited to have our MetaMask developer community call today. I'm going to hand the microphone to Cantele, but before I do that, we are in CrowdCast. If you haven't been here before, just so you know, on the right-hand side, we have the chat area, which of course you can see that you could chat there. However, we also do have an ask a question queue on the bottom there, which this is where we can see already we have some questions loaded up there. Perfect, because this is where the team is going to answer those questions at the end. We'll leave some time after everybody kind of talks through things. There's a couple polls, if you can answer those as well, that will help us kind of get a sense of some things in the community that we want to get some feedback from you guys on. And certainly if you do ask a question, if you are interested in actually asking the question yourself, we can bring you up on stage. So I'll ask you at that moment when we're looking at the question. If you don't want to come up on stage, that's totally fine. I'll ask the question for you. So without further ado, I will hand the mic to Cantele.
Thank you, Shay. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first MetaMask developer community call. Very, very excited to have you all here. I'm Cantele. I'm the product marketing manager for MetaMask. And so this is our first community call, and we're looking to do this more often in the future, just to share what we're working on, be a bit more transparent, but also to hear from the community what your questions are, what you want to know about. So feel free in that box that Shay just described at the bottom that says ask a question. If there's any topic that you want to hear us speak about in the future, feel free to drop it in there, and we'll review that at the end and see if that's anything that we can use. So what can you expect for today? First, we're going to hear from our product team. So we're going to start with Erik Marks, who is our extensibility team lead. And Erik is going to cover what MetaMask is, how we see our role in Web3 and web technologies generally. And then he'll talk a bit more about the growth of our network support and our plans for the future. And after that, you'll hear from Omna Toshniwal, who is the product manager for our mobile app, and from Ghim, who is the product manager for our extension. And they will talk a bit more about what's next for custom network support, and then the ERP 1559 implementation assumptions and outcomes. When our product team is finished, we're going to go into a live tutorial by Tom Hay, who leads DevRel, and he's going to show you about generic process and best practices for deploying a smart contract to an L2 and to mainnet as well. And then after that, like Shay said, we'll have some time for Q&As. So we'll look at the questions that you've asked that are relevant to the topic, and we'll address those in the time that we've got. And then finally, we'll have some time for Anthony, who's got some shout outs for our community. Finally, just so you know, this event is recorded and live streamed to our YouTube channel. So if you're watching on YouTube, we can't answer any questions that you might put in a comment box there, but feel free to give the channel a follow if you haven't already. All right, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Erik. Thank you.
Yes, Erik's joining now.
All right.
Here we go.
Okay. Cool. Hi, everyone. So as Cantele said, I'm Erik Marks. I'm the team lead of our extensibility team here at MetaMask. I've been with the team for about 3 years now, during which time the team has changed a lot. And our user base has grown tremendously during that time, and the product has also changed tremendously during that time. And so just for my part, I want to give a little bit of background about MetaMask, how we see ourselves, how we see our purpose, and then talk about give you a brief history of our Ethereum network support, and talk about where we're taking all that stuff in the future. And so at MetaMask, we believe that one of the big problems with the original internet is that it didn't have a business model built into it, and this is a narrative you'll hear a lot everywhere in crypto. And so a business model was invented sort of after the fact, and that business model was ads, and it involves massive, ubiquitous, very invasive surveillance in order to build profiles of people that come to their computers to watch movies, buy things, whatever, and then present targeted ads to them in the hope of getting them to buy more stuff. And so at MetaMask, we are no fans of surveillance, and we're Web3. The business model is kind of baked into the base layer, and that allows you because if you think of a cryptocurrency wallet is to blockchains what a web browser is to the internet. Is kind of how you can think about it. And so, whereas a web browser doesn't have a baked-in way to sort of make money off of, or to really earn any revenue just from people coming to the web browser and using it, unless it gets into the ad business, we at MetaMask have been able to, with our swaps product, simply offer a service in the wallet that it is completely free to use. And you can just ignore it. You can always go to Uniswap or whatever exchange, or Sushi Swap or whatever exchange you prefer, if that is your preference. Or you can pay a small fee to use a very convenient service that is guaranteed to give you the best quote right in the wallet. And we believe that really shows the path forward for Web3, which is that we can, because of how Web3 works, we can create sustainable business models as wallets without collecting your data, surveilling you, or otherwise baking in hidden costs to you, the user, into the wallet. And so to talk about the history of our network support a little bit. So MetaMask, of course, when we first started, and our founders, Aaron Davis and Dan Finley, started the wallet, we only had support for Ethereum mainnet, because that was the only thing that really mattered at the time. And then as the wallet grew, and as the Ethereum ecosystem grew, eventually you got these you got the test networks, like Ropsten, Rinkeby, Koban, etc. And they became sort of de facto standardized. And so then we took those and added them to the wallet as well. But then after that, there was a sort of a stop for a time where we didn't have a huge growth of different chains until we got to layer 2s, and they started coming online. And then we were in a position where we really don't want to gatekeep users or developers ever. And so if we start to just add networks by default, we end in a situation where we become the people who decide what gets to be in the wallet and who gets to, we get to pick winners a little bit. And that is a decision we're very uncomfortable with and we don't want. And so we very quickly came to the idea that we just need a way for people to add layer 2s and other networks to MetaMask without our involvement, so long as these networks are compatible. And that's where the custom network API came from. We'll definitely provide we can provide links in the chat to documentation for that later, and certainly in the description of the video if anyone isn't familiar with that. And so we started with this RPC method that allows you to add any EVM chain to MetaMask. You just need to provide a URL for the RPC endpoint. And then people also wanted a way to ask the user to switch the network. Because obviously, like if you're on chain A, but the DApp wants you to be on chain B, currently in MetaMask, you have to switch the network in order for that to work. And so then we also created this switch Ethereum chain method that allows the network to be switched. And so these methods, we think, are, they've been well received. They're useful. They get the job done. And we're looking to, we may expand their functionality into the future. But more than that, we always want to make sure that, the experience of using a layer 2 in MetaMask is excellent. But again, we're still in this position where the features that we choose to implement are sort of, we end up being in a position where we kind of pick winners anyway. And obviously, like when you create a complex software product, you will have to make tough decisions like that. But over time, we want to open this up, open up our APIs even more, and give developers even more ways to customize the wallet. And we will have more to announce about this in the very near future. But for now, I'm just going to make those mysterious illusions and leave it at that. And I think next we will hear more from Chantal, and then from my colleagues Omna and Kevin. Thanks everyone, and thanks for watching.
Thank you, Erik. I believe Chantel is going to be, we have another speaker coming up, Omna. She's joining us right now. And we are waiting for her to come on screen. There she is. All right, great. So, hello and welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. Cool. Should I go for it? Okay. So yeah. So as Erik said, just starting off where he left it, with the custom network API method, when we rolled it out, was, we saw a dramatic change in how people were using MetaMask. The usage of other networks just kind of blew up, and it became super easy for people to add and use networks, for dApps to suggest networks, and just build on top of the other networks. So dApps that work on the different networks. And now our focus is largely on, it has been largely on getting experience parity. So because MetaMask wasn't necessarily built for multiple networks, but we are increasingly multi-chain, and there are UX things that don't function as well, because the assumption was baked in that it's going to be working on the default networks, which are the Ethereum mainnet and the testnets. So right now we have been working on making sure that it is easy, as easy it is to use on mainnet, on the custom networks. You're able to interact, you're able to manage your assets, you're able to add networks, to interact with them safely, to send transactions safely. You have the right kind of safeguards to and education for users to make sure that they don't lose funds. That's been a lot of where our focus has been. Stuff that's upcoming includes things like improved token detection. So the tokens that you have on the different networks, they'll be auto-detected better. This is very, very coming up very, very soon. And then things that we're looking into next, which you might be interested in and would love to hear your thoughts on, maybe we'll do a poll after this, is we're looking for ways in which we can enable dApps further to onboard people directly to the networks that are relevant for those dApps. So thinking like extending our onboarding API, both for mobile and extension, to allow dApps to suggest and onboard users directly on that network, on the network that app works on, and also potentially looking into offering on-ramp solutions directly for the networks. Let us know. We are very curious to hear what are the challenges we should be tackling, what are the pain points we have, and always open for feedback. And this is certainly a priority. We have pretty big things coming in the multi-chain experience direction, so watch out for it. I did share everything, but exciting stuff upcoming. Chantal, I'll hand it over back to you. And
I think we have Kevin Ghim up next. Thank you so much, Omna.
Okay.
All right. Kevin, are you ready to rock and roll?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin. I am the Extension Product Manager here at MetaMask, and I am here to talk about our implementation of 1559. I wanted to share some slides, but it seems like I can't do it. Shay, do you know why?
Yeah, go ahead and try. You should be able to. There should be enough spots. Try that again.
Okay.
Do a screen share.
Yeah. 1 second here. Let me just get my appropriate windows up. Okay. I think I have it ready. And let me share my screen. Why can I do that?
And while Kevin's doing that, everybody, please, I notice everybody's adding questions to the queue. Thank you so much. You're also welcome to upvote any questions you see in there that might be a question you want to ask. So if you can give it priority for us to answer, we'll try to answer all of those. We do have quite a few questions, so try and upvote any questions so we can give it priority at the end there. There you go.
Okay, now you should be able to see the screen, right?
All right.
Okay, so I wanted to give a brief update on our implementation of 1559. So going into 1559, we had some assumptions. And if you don't know about 1559, it is where Ethereum basically doubles the size of the block space. And what this allows the protocol to do is establish a market rate for transaction inclusion. So we initially assumed that this would, by automating gas fee bidding system, that gas prices would stabilize more, and we would avoid the huge spikes, both downwards and upwards, that many of our users and developers have experienced before. And therefore, it would eliminate also the long waiting time that some of our users have experienced, because they have just submitted their transaction while there was a huge spike happening. So these are our assumptions going in. Because of relying on protocol-determined gas prices, namely the base fee, we assumed that we could provide a simple gas control with great defaults based on some predictive algorithms. Well, what the outcome is, so we just launched 1559 about a week ago on extension, and about 2 weeks before that on mobile. So the outcome is, does it establish market rate for transaction inclusion? And the answer is yes and no. So if you see the chart there, pre-1559, you see the wild oscillation of gas prices per block. While the gas prices did stabilize and eliminating, particularly the dips, it didn't eliminate the spikes. So in some cases, users still had to wait for lower prices for the transactions to be included, especially for those users that are more kind of contract publishing based. So yeah, that's what we experienced. The other thing is, another thing that we learned during our launch is that it's really hard to predict, fine-tune predictive algorithms. So we wanted to really simplify the UI and have great defaults that users can choose from low, medium, and high. But at the same time, trying to fit in very complex logic and explanation into a simple UI was really hard to do. Another thing we learned was, users tend to think in terms of time, and they also tend to focus more on worst-case scenarios. So these are things that we are all going to put into the next coming version of V2. So we're quickly working on this. We have some great feedback from the community and our users. In particular, we're going to pay attention to two archetypes, which is kind of like the NFT buyer and the contract publisher. So the NFT buyer is more about the short game. How can we get into the transaction as quickly as possible? I may have a really high max fee price that I've arranged for, but I also want to have quick controls in my max priority so that I can compete in gas wars. The other archetype that we're paying close attention to is the long game. So, I don't really care how long it takes. I just want to have a minimum inclusion fee that I'm setting for, and if it reaches that threshold, please have my transaction be included. So we're working on a better UI. We're working on better explanation and copy and educational opportunities. And if you have any further suggestions, you can reach out to me directly. I'm on Twitter, Kevin Ghim. Looking forward to working with the community here.
Thank you, Kevin. We are going to invite, excuse me, the next one up on screen, Cantele. I'm trying to coordinate so we have enough spots for everybody. So Tom is up next. All right, great. Tom, we already have you on screen. We'll have you take over. And I'll invite Cantele back on. I guess she got a little bump there. All right, take it away, Tom.
Hi, everyone. I am Tom Hay. I am the head of developer relations here at Consensus, and I'll also be being joined by Anthony Albertorio, who is our DeFi community builder and also an instructor with Consensus Academy. And today we are going to be talking to you about MetaMask, dApps, and Ethereum scaling solutions. So we're going to be giving you a quick overview, quasi tutorial. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my very cluttered desktop that you all can see. And we're going to talk a little bit about Ethereum scaling solutions. So as we go into the, hopefully people can see my screen. Give me a yes, Shay. Yes.
There you go.
You can see it? Great. Awesome. Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So, so a couple of things. What are Ethereum scaling solutions? We're also going to refer to these as L2s, depending on the scaling solution. This term may or may not be interchangeable, and it kind of depends on the preference of the technology. So I'll just start with that. You might hear me use the terms interchangeably, and I would just say that we typically work with, with a scaling solution or an L2, whatever they want to be called, we'll call it that. But basically, it's software that is going to allow transactions to be processed at a faster rate and or for less gas than mainnet Ethereum, right? So in a situation right now, if for example, right now gas, the fees are really high, a scaling solution would allow for transactions to happen with much lower fees. Scaling solutions maintain a compatibility with mainnet Ethereum, and generally, I'm generalizing here, they're able to do movement of assets or data via a bridge between mainnet and the scaling solution and vice versa. You might hear some terms like rollups, side chains, state channels. I would consider these to fall into the category of Ethereum scaling solutions. So why use MetaMask with Ethereum scaling solutions? Well, there's a few different reasons why you would want to do that. And as a developer, you'd want to use MetaMask in your dApp to allow for a great user experience for the users of your dApp. MetaMask is going to allow your end users to interact with mainnet Ethereum and Ethereum scaling solutions using MetaMask by simply switching networks. I am going to share a different part of my screen now, and I will just sort of, oh gosh, we went into super mode. Hopefully we'll get back to this. All good? See my screen again?
Yes, it's showing.
Yes. Okay. But basically, just by hovering over can you see this part of my screen? We're still seeing the same thing. You're seeing MetaMask now.
I'm seeing
Just seeing your slide, your browser page still.
All right. How can I maybe close that? And I will, great. I will share screen 2, which should be able to then, hopefully now you can see this, right? Yes. I'm going to say,
yes.
I think that is yes.
Yes.
So we can just, as Erik and Omna we're already talking about, you can easily, switch between networks or on Ethereum mainnet. A user can go in and basically add the custom RPC, and they are able to have access to an L2, whether that's mainnet of that L2 or that scaling solution or a testnet. So that is it allows your end user to have that quick ability to, within one wallet, use all these different networks. MetaMask also provides the most comprehensive support for scaling solutions. As I said, you as the developer, because your users have this flexibility, you can choose and use the scaling solution that works best for your use case and integrate that into your dApp. And then also in working with the scaling solutions, oftentimes you as a developer can, through these scaling solutions, they've built custom libraries in JavaScript that actually make the front end experience something that you can customize to further reduce the friction and understanding of a user for when they're moving an asset between mainnet and the scaling solution. There's certain additional functionality that you can plug in that would build off on top of libraries like Ethers.js or Web3.js to sort of create a nice front-end experience. So let's talk about 6 considerations that you as a developer need to have in mind. So in these 6 considerations, I'm going to use the example of playing a game of chess on Ethereum. Or could be checkers as well, but we'll go with chess. In this use case, we need to decide what actions in this game of chess in our application are going to happen on mainnet and which are going to happen on the scaling solution. So, for example, if gas fees are really high, it doesn't really make sense for us to have every single move represented on mainnet. I realize this is kind of a ridiculous example, but bear with me. It might make sense, though, for us on the scaling solution to actually have all of those moves represented so we can see the course of a game and go back and replay it. But what we want at the end is just to know who was the winner, and maybe we want to issue them an ERC20 token to say they are the winner. So that way, Anthony, when he beats me, he can hold it over my head and say, I'm the winner, I beat Tom, I have the ERC20 token. Or maybe it's an ERC721. That winner should be able to sort of move that token back to mainnet so that they can use it. So that's a consideration. What is going to happen on the L2 or the scaling solution? What's going to happen on mainnet? Now, another important consideration is each solution requires a specific Ethereum testnet. So first off, doesn't need to be repeated to you all, but I'm just saying it for myself. You need to test your smart contracts before you deploy them live. So definitely use testnets, definitely get other users to go in and make sure that the smart contracts function the way you want them to. But it's important to note that scaling solutions use certain testnets, and that will be considered in their documentation. So you might have to go and get some Coven ETH and then bridge that over to your scaling solution in order to test and use the dApp before you deploy it to Ethereum mainnet and the scaling solution mainnet. So There are always some intricacies with that, so just keep that in mind. Your smart contract will also need to be deployed to both Ethereum mainnet when it's time to go live. And in the case of testnets, this is also true. So it's deployed both to Ethereum mainnet and to the scaling solution. And in some cases, you may need to rewrite or recompile the smart contract in order for it to work. So just keep that in mind as well. A lot of these scaling solutions, you can just deploy exactly the same smart contract, but in some cases, there may need to be a recompiling of it to match a certain language that that smart contract has to be in for that scaling solution. You also need to ensure that your end user has an idea of the time it's going to take to move an asset between the scaling solution and Ethereum mainnet and vice versa. First, this needs to meet the needs of your dApp, right? So if you're going to need to move an asset to at a certain time frame, you need to pick a scaling solution that will allow you to do that. Also, equally important, if not more important, you need to communicate this to your users to set their expectations. You don't want a user moving a token from Ethereum mainnet to the scaling solution and then realizing afterwards it's going to be 30 days before they can move it back. This is sort of an absurd example, but you see, I hope you see what I'm saying. You need to be able to communicate and for them to understand the time frame that they're able to move an asset from mainnet to the scaling solution and back and vice versa, and why that is. It might be security considerations. There might be other factors in play. You also need to check for the support of specific token standards. Different scaling solutions allow for different support of token standards. And so depending on the dApp that you're building, if you need ERC20, if you need ERC721, you really need to make sure that that's going to be supported with the scaling solution that you choose. Then finally, you need to ensure users have a flow to add the custom network in MetaMask so they can easily see the scaling solution as intended. One way that you can do this is chainlist.org. Sometimes you can just do it by writing it into the JavaScript of the dApp itself and having a nice little button that people can click and it will add it, but you can always default to manually. Regardless of what you choose, user experience is key, so keep this in mind. Two more considerations that are a little bit outside of the scope of this presentation. Anthony will drop these links into the chat, but our colleague Coogan Brennan wrote a great article about 4 questions to judge any L2 scaling solution, and it really gives you a sense of what are further questions you need to ask yourself. It's out of scope of this presentation. I think it's definitely worth a read. And then our colleague Patrick McCrory, who's on the Infura team, recently published an article called Off-Chain Protocols, Rollups, and Sidechains. It's a great explanation of just why would we use scaling solutions in general. So give that a read. Okay, so now it's time for our quasi tutorial. Let's discuss the process of deploying the simplestorage.sol smart contract. So what is simplestorage.sol? It is this contract object that's on my screen. It has an unsigned integer called stored data, and it has 2 functions. The first function is a set function, which allows us to set an unsigned integer as stored data, and then a get function, which allows us to actually return that uint, that unsigned integer. So in this scenario, we're thinking about like, well, what would we, if we wanted to deploy this and have the ability to have it on mainnet and also on the L2 scaling on an L2 scaling solution, like what would be our general process in thinking of doing this? And so here is the general process. It's generalized. It may change for you depending on your use case, but just want to sort of walk you through it. So first, we're going to assume that we've chosen our L2 scaling solution. We know what we need for our use case, and that's set. You need to write your contract, and you need to write it for your L2 and for Ethereum. You will deploy the smart contract to the L2 testnet. You could also deploy it, like if you wanted to, locally on a test blockchain like Ganache, which would support doing this. You also need to deploy the compatible smart contract to Ethereum, either the relevant testnet or, once again, like a local blockchain running on your machine. You're going to deploy your front end and any specific libraries to a server. You're going to, if there's a bridge element of this, you need to test that. You need to test the UX using MetaMask. You need to make edits to the smart contract, which means that you're actually just going to be redeploying it locally or redeploying it on testnets, and making sure everything works to perfection. Once you're satisfied with this, you're going to repeat steps 3 through 5, but you're going to substitute mainnet for the L2, and also use mainnet Ethereum. And then you want to check the block explorers and monitor transactions. Each of these L2s have their own block explorers similar to Etherscan. And so you can use your favorite Ethereum block explorer, but also the L2 block explorers as well. And then just in general, like when I'm doing this, so we're going to talk about some Truffle Boxes that we have that allow you to essentially do this and get started. But the developer, the sort of the setup that I use, be MetaMask, Infura for like when doing a testnet or mainnet deployment, Truffle, Ganache for any sort of local blockchain deployment. I personally use your IDE of choice or your text editor. I use VS Code, and then Node, NPM, and Docker. So we have some Truffle Boxes that we've actually built to work with Polygon, Optimism, Arbitrum, and Anthony will drop these in. Just because we have a short time together today, we can totally continue this conversation in Discord, but there are just to kind of show you, like I've already gone ahead and unboxed these Truffle Boxes. I have the Arbitrum, Optimism, and Polygon Truffle Boxes, and you'll just see that we have our contracts that we would be deploying to Ethereum and to Polygon. I believe in this case they are exactly the same, and we'll go through the process of testing these contracts, making sure that they're compiled and that we're able to deploy them, whether we're doing that locally or on test nets. And I just also want to so Truffle's going to expose for us commands that we can use to get these these smart contracts deployed, tested, etc. Shout out to Fana Schultz who built these. And just another point that I will sort of show you is that just in terms of deploying these, in Infura, you're able to go in as well. And as you can see here, we already have the APIs for the layer 2s set up. And here's an example one that I have, and this is just a notional one. I'll be deleting this, so all this will go away. But what you see is that you can actually go in and select the test nets or the main net for these scaling solutions, so you can do the deployment. And so we'll kind of switch back to our presentation. A couple more things that I want to just talk about before I need to wrap, and then we can take this over after the call into Discord, where we really get into the code and answering questions. We also have this really helpful README that is a sample from the Consensus Academy Developer Bootcamp that tries to give an overview of scaling solutions, provides helpful links and documentation. Shout out to Coogan Brennan and everyone that he worked on to create this. And then talk to us in Discord. We'll share the link. I'll be hanging out in the MetaMask general channel of the Discord. These information from this call, we'll also be writing this up and making this into a longer form article that will go on Discourse with some additional examples and code snippets and things like that. So I will just want to say happy building. Thank you for having us, and so cool to be hanging out with all of you.
Shay, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was just trying to say, we'll get everybody's screen on here. We have some time for some questions. I wanted to quickly read the results of our polls. If you have a chance, please go in. We added a couple polls at the end there, but we'd love to hear from you because we want to get a sense of where you are in your Web3 journey. What type of developer are you? Well, we mostly have people who are dApp developers. We have one that's protocol developer in our call today. And then other is the other 18 votes. So just so you guys know, in terms of what our audience skill set is. Okay, also, where are you in your journey? Okay, so mostly you guys are just starting the Web3 journey, generally interested in MetaMask. So you're kind of still, figuring out a lot of the stuff that the options available for you. A few have been developed a fully functioning dApp. Some are still in the process of first dApp, and some are just still interested in exploring Web3. How useful will your dApp users will it be for your dApp users if you can onboard them to MetaMask directly on the desired EVM chain network? And everybody agrees that whoever voted agrees that it's very useful. So this is going to be something that we're happy that we can kind of expound on. Which part of your user's journey do you think deserves more improvement or most improvement when interacting with MetaMask? Most of you guys said, and make it even easier to add the relevant custom network, excuse me, and then also improve gas fee estimation on custom networks. There were a couple votes for reduce the need to switch networks. So just wanted to give you guys that feedback. Let's see here. So yeah, so now we'll just, I'll hand the mic over to Cantele for Q&A. You guys have loaded up quite a few questions. Maybe we can just address the ones that are most upvoted or that Erik and Cantele that you think we need to address right now on the call. And of course, if any of you have a question and you would like to come up on stage and interact and talk, just mention it in the chat there and we can invite you up when your question is asked. Okay.
Thanks, Shay. Yeah, thanks everyone for all the questions. Also, if there's any topic that you want discussed in the following community call, feel free to add that to that same box. I can see that a lot of the questions are already answered. Some were about tokens, which got some answers, but the two that I wanted to highlight is the first one, Erik, I'll throw to you, is about is the question if MetaMask will integrate the bridge to let users perform cross-chain swaps through MetaMask. I know you and Jacob responded to that question, but if there's anything you wanted to ask, I just wanted to give you that opportunity now.
Right. So I can't speak to which specific service provider we'll use, and I'm not personally familiar with eBridge, but in general, and I'm sorry if it's very loud here right now.
Yeah, well, a little audio. He'll fix that. Tom, I'm going to bring you up on here too, just in case we have some questions for you. And thank you again. Sorry, your camera's there. Yes, we got your profile.
All right.
Okay, so Erik's back.
A garbage truck was crashed our call. But yes.
City noise.
So which specific service provider? So we want to support multiple ways to bridge between different chains. And the main problem for us in terms of supporting that at this early stage is that it is so early that there isn't any agreed upon standard for like how do we move assets from chain A to chain B, because obviously none of the protocol developers that created those chains thought of how to do that, and so there needs to be basically what I want L2s to do in order for us to support bridges is agree on an interface that you all use. And then we will just give you an API and you can just bridge left and right, any combination, back and forth, go absolutely nuts. Please create standards so that we can support the standards, and then we will add any bridge you can possibly dream of into MetaMask.
Yes, and I was going to say, Cantele, maybe it would be worth it. I know that's been answered, or maybe there's been a couple kind of just comments on this, but a lot of people are wondering about the MetaMask token. Can we just speak to that a little bit more? Is there any roadmap about it? I know Anthony already mentioned that he thinks that ETH is pretty high quality, that Jacob mentioned that they're super interested in ways to make MetaMask community owned. doing that for wallets is a lot more complex than a single dApp, but it is certainly something we are exploring. So do we want to expound on that anymore, or because I know that's everybody's wondering, so maybe we can just address that.
I'll disappoint everyone.
Okay.
And by saying, so if we do not have any immediate plans for a token, when we do, you're not going to miss or wonder if we have plans for a token. So like you will see, it'll be obvious. Everybody will be tweeting about it.
You guys will be first to know.
And we will be tweeting about it. And so unless you see, official announcements from the MetaMask Twitter or like Consensus and like Dan Finley, et cetera, it's not happening. And so we don't have any immediate plans for it. We are absolutely open to the idea, but we want to ship. We don't want to just do an ICO for a token that doesn't have a use case. So we really want the use case to be compelling, and we want it to really benefit the MetaMask community. And so obviously, if we just did an ICO airdrop, it probably would benefit the community or some of the community because it would immediately pump. Some people would sell it, and then it would die. So that's not really what we want to do. So we want a good way to do it. We're absolutely open to it, but we have no immediate plans for it.
Yes, thank you, Eric. Yeah, and I think that's a good point of saying, I know everybody's kind of chomping at the bit, but I think it's important to like really think of the use case so that when we do roll something out, it really has meaning and can really have some legs. And so I think that's why the team is really kind of exploring what you guys are requesting or suggesting, but we want to make it something that makes a lot of sense and maybe look at it from a different angle, right? Everybody's kind of jumping in at the same point. So maybe this could be something we could look at where we can make it a bit more meaningful. But thank you for the question. Yeah, so if there was another question from ETH for Life, they asked, what are your plans for extended NFT display support? Anyone want to field that?
I mean, I can talk about that too. And so I can't give you. So I am not the person that is spending the majority of my time working on what we're doing with NFTs and more in the future. But I can say that there are people that are spending a lot of time thinking about how NFTs are going to work in the future in MetaMask, and stay around and find out. There is more to come there.
The quick answer is yes. We are looking to support that. To your question, we do have people working on that. So what that looks like, we'll definitely, you guys again will all be the first to know about this. But for sure, we are looking to be supportive in that space.
Here's an interesting question from Paul. Have you had any success at getting all the L2 folks in one room to agree to discuss an agreement on an interface? So I guess L2 UX UI best practices agreement.
Yeah, so I can speak to that too. And the answer is, so I know that there are some suggested standards and interfaces out there, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that Nick Johnson of EMS wrote like a smart contract and posted it that could be used as a layer 2 bridge. But to directly answer your question, Paul, no, we have not tried very hard to convene all of the different layer 2s to talk about how to do standards. Getting people to do standards is generally hard. They need to be very motivated to do it. Having been involved in writing some standards myself, it takes a ton of time, even to write a simple RPC method like wallet at Ethereum chain. Like just to actually, that was done as an IP, and to do that, it just takes at least one person all of their time for weeks. But hopefully we can make something happen there soon. I mean, eventually someone will be sufficiently incentivized to actually be like, okay, let's figure out a standard for how to do this. Maybe it'll be us. Maybe someone will beat us to the punch. Feel free to beat us to the punch because we don't want to do it if we don't have to.
Shout out to everyone working on standards. You may not be said. We appreciate you. We love you. You're great.
Yeah, and thank you, Jacob, on chat. He's been diligently answering questions for us and around that issue or that concern. Yes, thanks, ETH for life. Okay. Were there any other questions? Chantel, did you want to? I know you guys have a few minutes, but I think there was another one about any possibility of adding 2FA to improve wallet security. Is that something we can speak to?
I think Anthony can speak to that one. He wrote an awesome article about that.
Yeah, feel free to check out MetaMask Learn. It's at community.metamask.io. There is a article on that, specifically why 2FA does not work for decentralized wallets. The article explains it more, but to keep it very high level and simple, it's the main thing is basically you want to protect your secret recovery phrase. 2FA is more for centralized servers and centralized, I guess, applications. If you use a hardware wallet and you take and you guard your secret recovery phrase, that should be sufficient. There's other things you can do, but check out the article. If you don't necessarily take the necessary precautions for your secret recovery phrase, it's like having your front door with an extra lock, but your back door and your windows all open. So just do the basics and then read the article, and you should be fine. It provides a false sense of security if you really kind of look at it.
Yes, and Eric had some comments, so feel free to read those. He had some good explanation too. So we're going to go ahead and leave with Anthony's shout outs to the community, because of course we always want to do that, and the most important part, right? So Anthony, go ahead. You have the mic.
Yeah, so shout out to the people. Shout out to like the developers, the people using MetaMask, everybody. This is a really kind of important movement that we're doing and we're creating. Shout out to Luigi on our community.metamask.io. He has been diligently going through and answering people's questions. Shout out to the people in the community emerging. That's now 28,000 people on our Reddit. So it's a very kind of a helpful community that everyone kind of helps each other, especially the people who report the scammers on there. Make sure never to share your secret recovery phrase. Shout out to Manbeer. He's creating a lot of great content. You're seeing it through our Consensus Twitter handle and hopefully through our MetaMask Twitter handle. Shout out to LA Hop for creating really good articles as well. And a shout out to Web3 Bridge and Lagos, Nigeria for helping to create and birth Web3 developers and helping to push forward MetaMask in the region. Please join the Biddle Network. If you want to kind of, shout out to Austin Griffith as well. Shout out, please join our Discord as well. If you want to continue the conversation, join Biddle Network. There's meetups all around the world. The best way to keep up with the ecosystem is to actually be part of the community. This thing is evolving so fast that not only the best way is to actually talk to people and collaborate with people. Go to ETH Global Hackathons, engage with us in community.metamask.io. If you have any suggestions or feature requests, community.metamask.io is the best place to kind of give them. We'll review them and we'll give you your feedback. But thank you.
Yeah, and as Anthony just mentioned, the most important thing, we would love for you guys to join us in our Consensus Discord community. We are really gathering our community there, and would love have all of you there to obviously represent MetaMask, but any of the Consensus tools that you're using. So please join us. I think you, Anthony dropped a link in there. It can also be at chat.consensus.net. That also goes to our Discord community. So please join us there. And you can obviously find us all there, easy to communicate. So with that said, I know Jacob mentioned, I don't know if we have enough time, Chantel, but like we could quickly maybe speak to this, Eric, is that he was wondering, is there anything we could maybe speak to a little bit more about 2FA in the way of extensibility, multi-sigs, just a little bit more explanation?
Sure. So I can just speak a little bit to that. And so basically, when people ask us of 2FA, you know, the answer is that like 2FAs don't make sense for non-custodial wallets, which includes MetaMask, and that's true. But the people who ask that question are actually have the right idea, which is that like I want. I want something other than, just my MetaMask grant the authority to do things on chain. I want there to be multiple things that have to come together in order to, approve a transaction. And the non-custodial wallets, that's called a multisig. And so this is an old idea in crypto, and there are multisig Ethereum wallets. MetaMask does not support them today, but we absolutely want to support them in the future. So really the answer is whenever we get asked the question, will MetaMask add 2FA support? The answer is you don't want 2FA support. That's just not because you need a different thing as a non-custodial wallet. That thing is called a multisig, and we want to support that, shall we say, account type in the future. And the way we're going to do that has everything to do with extensibility, which we will reveal more about soon.
Thank you so much, Eric, for answering that. And so I think we're going to wrap up at the hour here. I'm going to bring Cantele back onto the screen. Yay, there you go. All right, you got the mic.
Awesome, thanks, Shay. Well, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining our first call today. It was great to have all the engagement from you guys. We hope it was valuable for you. Keep an eye out for the next one, and we'd love to see you again, and have a great day. Thanks.